I always found something really mysterious about the films of Dutch-born actor Rutger Hauer. Hauer's films were coming out at a time when I was young, when there was a lot of steep competition, with the likes of Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal, all having big action films in the box office. But Rutger Hauer was always my go-to guy. If I saw his name in the credits of a film, it was undoubtedly that I was going to go and buy, rent, or go and see that movie at the cinema. So what was it about Rutger Hauer that made his films really stand out for me? Hauer had speech therapy so he could act in American movies, and his Dutch-American accent always had something very calming yet sinister, and almost magical to it in certain roles. He had hit films like Blind Fury, The Hitcher, Blade Runner, and Ladyhawke, as well as doing art house flicks like Legend of the Holy Drinker and sci-fi romps like Wedlock. But these movies were always 100% watchable. But there was something deeper. There was something more in these movies that makes me go back to them again and again. I was very sad to hear about the death of Rutger Hauer a few years ago, and I went back and began watching a lot of his movies again, or buying them and upgrading to DVD and Blu-ray. And I wanted to take this opportunity to look back over a few of Rutger Hauer's films which I love, and ask, what is it about this guy that made him totally irresistible to watch? Let's start with a few of Hauer's own words on how he dissected and played a role.
You know, I use my intelligence and my instincts to go into these characters and make them just a little different than you've seen before.
Yeah.
That's because I'm European and because I'm probably, you know, a little more open-minded to bad guy, good guy.
Yeah.
To me, the whole difference is a fake. Mm-hmm. We like to pretend that we are the good guys, but we know that we have our bad moments, mm-hmm. and we can have them within, you know, a minute.
Yeah.
But we don't tell anybody. We just keep, you know, the good guys and bad guys apart. Yeah. I think all the films that we make, you know, in this world, we are, you know, altogether a mirror of what we think is interesting, you know, altogether.
Yeah.
So we are a mirror of society.
So we are a mirror of society. Listening to Hauer say these words begins to make me realize what it is about him that commands our attention as a performer, and what it is that makes him different from other actors. So perhaps he does bring a European sensibility to his roles as a villain. Perhaps this is why Europeans are often cast in the role of villains in the movies. Think of guys like Malcolm McDowell, or more recently Tom Hiddleston. I think Hauer is telling us that he's open to his emotions, even the negative ones, because he knows we are all flawed as human beings. And realizing we have those flaws, himself included, is perhaps what makes him a superior actor and performer to other people. One of my favourite roles that Hauer played was the role of John Ryder in the film The Hitcher. And I'd like to just read a little excerpt from Hauer's book, All Those Moments, where he discussed his characterization of John Ryder, who in the film is a total killer maniac. My take on Ryder was that he knows he's troubled, but he doesn't know how to get fixed. He wants to die, but he doesn't have the guts to kill himself. It would really be best if somebody came along and said, "You need to die now, and I'm going to do it for you." When he hooks up with the kid, he gets a feeling about him. Maybe this is the guy, and it makes him all warm inside. The character of the Hitcher could have been played like another performer, as a normal two-dimensional bad guy. But Hauer wanted to give John Ryder something else. He wanted to give him a flaw, which would make him more human. John Ryder wants to die, and he knows he's sick, and he knows that this is the kid to do it for him. The role of John Ryder is a tremendous performance, and I think one of Hauer's best. Hauer's characterization of Ryder is just one example of how this magnificent actor gave depth to his performances. And knowing what Hauer gave to his performances perhaps makes me begin to understand what it is that I find so magnetic about the guy. So looking into Hauer's own words, and then looking at his performance as Ryder in the Hitcher, we begin to see that it was Hauer's intellectual and personal feelings on what it means to be human that bring these unique characteristics to his roles that make me want to keep watching his movies. Hauer took his work very seriously, and even though some of these were low-budget action movies, he was creating character studies and keeping them interesting for the audience as well as for himself. Something most actors should do, right? So what else could it be that makes me want to watch Hauer and makes him stand out from the crowd? Looking back over interviews with him, as well as reading his own words in all those moments, we find that Hauer was a big fan of Marlon Brando, and that seeing On the Waterfront at a young age was a big influence on him and something he remembered very well. Now if we look at Marlon Brando's school of acting, it's all about those small moments. It's about the raised eyebrows. It's about making everything more intimate for the camera. Great British actor Michael Caine, who I also admire, said something very similar. He said that you must always be thinking the thoughts of your character, because the moment you stop thinking those thoughts, the camera will see it, and the magic will be lost to the audience. In Hauer's own words, this is how he described his acting technique for the camera. On film, you make things smaller, more intimate. Film is a medium that likes to know less. It's like secrecy, and the smallest gesture can be significant. I am a little shy, and I always have been. Perhaps this shyness of Hauer's, mixed with his admiration for the technique of Marlon Brando, can help explain and why he was so irresistible to watch. Hauer knows that the raise of an eyebrow can look like a mountain on the camera. This might explain that cheeky smile of Hauer's and that glint we see in his eyes. The camera picks all that stuff up, and it really works wonders in believing his character because there's something there. There's something behind those eyes. It's not just a facade. Hauer is playing it for real. He's not just playing it for real for the audience. I think he's playing it for real for himself as well. And he has fun with his characters. Another one of my favourite Rutger Hauer performances is from 1989's Salute of the Jugger, also known as The Blood of Heroes. This movie is a fantastic entry into the late 80s career of Rutger Hauer. I had the movie on VHS and watched it again and again. I love the movie so much I actually have the poster out there in the hall and I see it every morning. It was one of those VHS classics that became one of the films of my youth, and probably one of the reasons why I love Rutger Hauer so much. In the movie, Hauer plays Sallow, a guy who's been diminished from the major leagues of a sport in a future landscape. The desert swallowed everything up, and everybody makes small moves. He wanders the countryside playing this game, a future sport in the minor leagues. Hauer said something really interesting about his character. He could have played Sallow just like your average B-movie hero, but Hauer chose not to. He chose to give him something special. In Hauer's own words, he put it like this: Sallow was interesting to me because he was cold. This was almost an avant-garde film because the language is filed down to the most basic level. Nobody wastes words. Nobody says, "How are you?" In this empty world, there is no original language left. And there he goes again. Hauer is bringing something unique to this character of Sallow. He's not just a hero, he's a flawed hero. He's a cold guy. Somebody that an audience has to choose to follow. Choose to go with this guy who doesn't want to show us emotion, who kinda moves through this bleak desert landscape of the future as our guide. Salute of the Jugger is an 80s career highlight for Rutger Hauer, and is a movie I've always felt deserves a lot more attention. When reading about Rutger Hauer the man, there also seems to be a very humanistic side to his character. which I find it impossible to ignore when I look at why he seems to be one of my favourite actors and why I return to his work again and again. Hauer's charity work and environmental work is a huge lasting part of the man's legacy, and I think shows a very interesting side to his character. The Rutger Hauer Starfish Association was created by Hauer to raise AIDS awareness and to look at the problem as something we should tackle head on instead of turning away from it. At the end of the day, when looking at all these things, Rutger Hauer just seems like the type of guy that you'd love to sit down and have a beer with. There's a real romantic side to the man, as well as Rutger Hauer the actor. Towards the end of my research for this film, I found an answer that is very close to what I've been looking for. In Rutger Hauer's own words, in a 2017 interview, he said this of his work: "The acting craft is to almost be a believable person, but it's just a sketch. I found that I have a face that will allow people to project on it, but also get what I'm putting out, and they understand what it is. It's like pure communication. It's all about projection. Film is just projection against a flat wall. People project in what you give them. They all see a different film. Everybody sees a different film. That's what Rutger Hauer did differently. He understood this about cinema. He was acting as a conduit for us, the audience. He was giving us the choice to follow him, portraying lead characters in different and alternative ways, showing us something we wanted to see, something we'd never seen before. Rutger Hauer was a humanitarian and a good man, and I think this comes across in his movies too. He's someone we want to follow, the true antithesis of a star, somebody who shows us the best and what we can be, the best of ourselves. There was one story I came across in my research that Rutger liked to tell in interviews and that was also featured in his book, about his time when he was young, when he was at sea as a galley boy. Now this story kind of sums up the whole essence of what I think I love about Rutger Hauer. There's something special about him and unique. He sees something else in the world that he wants us to see too. One night during a storm at sea, I got an idea. I left our cabin and crawled across the front deck, holding onto the safety lines until I reached the front of the boat. Once there, I held myself to the railing and rode these big waves. Sometimes the water broke over the bow on top of me. The force of the sea was unimaginable, and the engineering of the boat was just so incredible. All my life there's been something that pushes me to the edge. There's an element of discovery to it. I'm a curious person. I always wanted to see what's over the next hill. I wanted to feel the power of the storm. As a result, I learned to respect it. This video is a tribute to Rutger Hauer the man as much as it is Rutger Hauer the actor. Though I first came to his movies on VHS through the action roles he played in movies like Salute of the Jugger and the Hitcher. Through reading about him and discovering why I like him so much. It's like by exploring Rutger Hauer, I've come to explore a new part of myself. He helped to open my eyes. So this is a tribute to the man, the great Rutger Hauer.